much for coming to our Understanding Modular Assessments for grades 1 and 2, ELA in math. One quick note is I know that some of the marketing went out to say that the modulars were available for K through 2. The actual modular assessments right now, there's just grades 1 and 2 that are available, but there is an interim assessment that is available for kindergarten along with grades 1 and 2. So if you have any questions as a kindergarten teacher, or you want to know how to get to that interim information, we can definitely point you in the right direction. But I just wanted to make it pretty clear that what we're looking at today is really just for grades 1 and 2. Just some webinar logistics. We always like to thank the New Hampshire Department of Education. They sponsor this particular webinar series, and a lot of the data coaching webinar series, webinars, a lot of the webinars that we have, they're able to be brought to you for free because they do sponsor them. So we really appreciate their support in helping us get the word out specifically about modulars for right now, but about a lot of different topics regarding data. Everybody's muted. We can't hear you. Please ask questions. There's a Q&A section on your Zoom screen where you can type in any questions that you might have along the way. Annie Wallace will feed those to me and we'll make sure that we get everything answered for you. Just a heads up that the raising hand feature is not really able to be used very well during a webinar. So if you have questions and you feel like you want to actually ask them out loud, we can try to enable that at the end, but it's always glitchy. So just keep that in mind. If you can type it, that's great. The PD certificate will come to you in an email tomorrow, along with the link to this PowerPoint and any other documents that I will be referencing in this webinar. So be on the lookout for that. It will also point you in the direction of the recording for this webinar, so you can always pass it along or show folks where to find it if you have colleagues that weren't able to attend. At the end of this, when I close out the webinar, there'll be a brief survey. We always like feedback and would like to hear what folks have to say about the content of the webinar or the format. So please take a few moments to be able to fill that out so we can know how we can improve in the future. If you leave before I close out, sometimes I'm answering questions at the end for quite a while. The link for the survey will also be in your email tomorrow. For your presentation team today, I'm Heather Jenkins. I work for Demonstrated Success. We also have Annie Wallace here from the Department of Education.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. We appreciate your time.
We do not have Kate McCaffrey on the webinar today, but I like to keep her information on here because if you are somebody who needs help with English language arts, she is the new contact at the NHED for English language arts. All right, so as we get started here, I wanted to just remind you what we're talking about today really is improving student performance. We're talking about assessment and being able to use assessment to figure out what skills students need to be able to continue to acquire. But for the most part, we're really talking about student improvement. So our goals for today are to answer these questions. Why use the New Hampshire SAS modular assessments? What are your options for grades 1 and 2? How can they help you better understand your grade level standards? And how do you get to them? So first things first, just to make sure you understand what the modular assessments are and what the benefits of using them are, I'm going to go through some general information here for you. First off, they are short periodic assessments. Specifically for grades 1 and 2, there can be anywhere from 6 questions to maybe 10 questions, maybe a few more, but there's not a lot of questions on the assessments in general. They're not really long. All students get the same questions, so it's nice for you to be able to figure out what skills students have and maybe what skills they are needing to still work on. For ELA and math, all of these modulars are based directly on the Common Core standards. So it's nice to have an assessment that's based on those particular standards and making sure that we are covering those. And they're also based on specific domains. So you can match them up with specific units or specific skills that you are looking to figure out if students have. You can administer them at any time throughout the year. Specifically, the grade 1 and 2 modulars came out about 2.5 weeks ago. They are new. Or they're new to New Hampshire, I should say. So for subsequent years and going forward, they'll be available a little bit sooner than they were this year, but you can administer them really at any time. And for grades 1 and 2, you're probably going to be sticking to your current grade level. Grade 1, you can't go any lower than grade 1 for the modular assessments. Technically, grade 2, if you have students that need to take a grade 1 modular, you can, but we're starting in the lower grades, so it's not quite as applicable for you folks. How they can help you as teachers and educators. They're going to help you measure your student achievement. It's nice that they're automatically scored and the results are pretty much immediate and down to that question level. So they can help you evaluate your program and teaching impact. You can maybe see where your program might not necessarily teach in a specific depth of knowledge that might be needed in relation to the Common Core, or perhaps it's something that you've misinterpreted with a standard that you might need to just revisit in your classroom. These assessments, they provide a common assessment for you. I know that a lot of folks in the lower grades might have programs that you're at least using as a guide, but they might be something that you might supplement or be able to use if the unit assessments in your particular program are not meeting your needs. And they'll also give the students a novel or new situation to see if they are able to transfer the skills that they're learning in your classroom. And they provide just detailed information for instructional purposes. If you know every single student is getting a specific question wrong, you can then take a peek at that question, drill down into some of those skills, and then try to figure out a way that you might be able to teach it a little bit differently within your classroom. And they'll help you really take a look and dial into those standards at your grade level and figure out, like I said a little bit earlier, about that depth of knowledge that is needed for students to be successful with your grade level skills. How these assessments can be used, they can be used if you're finishing up a particular unit. They can be used as a pre-assessment, formative assessment. You can do it technically as a homework assignment. I know in the lower grades, students are not necessarily on their computers that much for homework, although COVID and remote learning sort of made them a little bit more aware of how to do things on the computer, but it's a possibility for you. And what I really like is that individual questions from the modulars can be put up or used as a question of the day for you, whether it be for a math workshop or just for a specific reading assignment. And you can work through the questions together, or you can have them work independently. I'll just pause here and just make sure we don't have any questions so far.
There are no questions at this time.
Thanks, Annie. All right, so your options for modular assessments. For math, for grades 1 and 2, these are the topic areas for your modular assessments. So you have measurement and data, you have numbers and operations base 10, geometry, and operations and algebraic thinking. And you have one modular for each one of those particular topic areas. Same thing for grade 2. So grade 1 and 2 are pretty similar for at least your options. Obviously, the questions are going to be different. For ELA, your specific areas that the modulars are those foundational skills, language, informational text, reading, literature, and writing. Here are the modulars that are available for first grade. So you have one of each one of those. And same thing for second grade. You have one of each one of those types of modular assessments. Probably no questions at this point. So I am going to just move right into the grade level examples, and then we might get some questions here.
You are correct, Heather.
All right, so this is grade 1. Here's some examples of what you'll see. I have a little disclaimer here. The questions are copywritten from the modulars. I can't take exact screenshots, so I've changed some of the questions, but you'll get an idea of what each type of modular is going to be asking for questions. So for grade 1, this is a numbers and operations base 10 question that you might get. Up at the top, you can see there's a little play button, and that will read students the question. This happens to just be a quick word problem. And then down on the bottom here is not a calculator. It's a touchpad or a keypad, so the students can click on the specific numbers that they would like to put in. And also they can just use the numbers on their keyboard. They don't have to use a mouse or anything like that to put the numbers in. So there's a couple of options there. This is a first grade example here for that. This is a measurement in data example question. So you've got something on the left-hand side. It will read again the question for you. They have to take the information from the left and change the graph on the right-hand side to be able to match the data on the left. This is a geometry question. So they're basically getting the question read to them, and then they can choose their answer, which can also be heard as well if they have trouble reading it. And then this is an operations and algebraic thinking question. And again, they've got the little touchpad there that they're able to use, or they can just type in their particular numbers for the answer. This is a reading literature example. So they've got some information on the left. I've changed a lot of it on the left-hand side, but you kind of get the idea where they're able to look at something on the left-hand side and read information on the left. And then they are doing and answering questions. You can see up here, there's 8 questions that they're going to answer related to this text. This just happens to be one of them. And they're interacting with that grid on the right-hand side and answering the question there. This is an example of a language question. So up at the top, there's a little play button, and that will give them the directions for this. So the directions aren't written out. They would listen to them, and then they would, again, change whatever it is or do whatever it asks them on their screen to be able to make sure that they've got the correct information. And this specifically has to do with punctuation and probably uppercase letters. When it comes to foundational skills and what you would get on that particular modular, for first grade, this is a teacher-directed modular. So basically, the students sign in to the portal, and then they're instructed to read a passage or story out loud. And then they're asked, the questions are asked and entered by the teacher. So as you're looking at the foundational skills and as they're asked to read things, you're looking at overall accuracy, fluency rate, and expression, and specific word types for accuracy, like diagraphs and high frequency words. For writing, this is again a teacher directed in first grade. A sentence is dictated to the student, and they're prompted to complete a short piece of writing related to that sentence. And then you're looking for things like letter formation, capitalization, punctuation, common spelling, and phonemic spelling. For grade 2, I'm showing you each type of question as well. So we're looking at numbers and operations base 10. Here's one of the examples of a question they might have, and they'll need to be able to put in the answer for. This is a measurement in data question. So you can kind of see what they need to do for that. Again, it's able to be read to them. For geometry, this is just an interactive talking about the sides of each shape, and putting the information in the correct box. And then this is one of the operations and algebraic thinking examples. So you can see here, there's a short word problem and they need to put in the answer. For reading informational text, here's an example of what you might see, and then what one of the question types might be that is related to this particular passage. So the second grade informational text has more than one passage, so they might be answering questions related to a specific passage. So they will be reading on their own and then answering the questions. For language, this is one of the examples of what you might do for one of the language questions. So basically looking at irregular past tense here. And then for foundational skills, this is in second grade, is also a teacher-directed modular. So students are instructed to read a passage or story out loud, and then the questions are asked and entered by the teacher. These types of questions include overall accuracy for a student when they are reading something, their fluency rate and expression, and then it's the same types of questions as first grade where they're looking for accuracy, maybe for long vowels or vowel teams or high frequency or trick words. So we're looking specifically at those foundational skills. And then for writing, this is not teacher directed. The first grade one is, but the second grade one is really, actually this one is as well, sorry. The scenario is dictated to the student and they're prompted specifically. This one is an opinion writing piece. So they're looking at topic sentence. Are the students able to state an opinion with related supporting sentences? They need concluding statements and specific questions related to sentence structure. So again, the students are writing on a piece of paper and then the teacher enters in the information for that specific student. Questions?
Nothing at this point in time, Heather. Thank you.
Great. Okay. So now I want to talk about where you can see the modular questions. It's called the assessment viewing application, and I've given you the steps of how to get there by using the New Hampshire SAS portal. If you just type in New Hampshire SAS, I think it's the second thing that shows up. The first one is the New Hampshire Department of Education, and it will bring you to their page all about New Hampshire SAS assessments. But the second one is this Cambium site here. Once you're on this site, you're going to click on this test administration top sort of area here, or on this first page, there's also the test administration on that homepage as well. So you can get to it a couple of ways. Once you're in the test administration window, there'll be different sections. The top section is preparing for test. And this is where we're talking about with being able to view the modulars in this assessment viewing application. I also want to make sure you all understand as well that you are not able to access the assessment viewing application until you do the test administration certification. Every teacher is required to do this certification once every school year, and it gives you access to the assessment viewing application. It gives you access to be able to administer the assessments, and also gives you access to the reporting portal to view the results. The big thing that you're going to have to understand as first and second grade teachers is you will most likely not have a login for the New Hampshire SAS assessments. The typical schools, what they do is they put in their third, fourth, fifth, whatever grade teachers they have that take the New Hampshire SAS summatives. Those are the particular teachers that they have within what's called TIDE. And that's this test information distribution engine. So your I4C coordinators or your test administrators in your building are the ones that are going to be able to provide you with a login to be able to do any of the New Hampshire SAS modular assessments. If you have ever administered them in the past, or if you're somebody that administers the New Hampshire SAS summatives now, you're probably fine. But first and second grade teachers aren't typically entered in there. So you might need to talk to somebody about getting a login. It's pretty simple once you do that. But again, you get the login, you do the test administration certification, and you should be good to go. Provided you have all that, this is where you're going to go, is in that assessment viewing application. And that's where you're able to see the modular assessment questions. This is that login that I was talking about that you will have. If you are brand new, you'll need to request, if you're not brand new, you'll request a new one for this school year. But the first time you log in, it will send a code to your email. It should show up, most of the time it's showing up in your inbox now instead of your spam. But if for some reason it doesn't show up to your inbox, check your spam. Once you're logged in, the assessment viewing application will give you a drop down here, and you'll be able to select a grade level. And then you choose whatever grade level you would like to view the modulars for. And then it will show you the modulars that are available for that particular grade level. You've got your list here. And then if you would like to look at one of these modulars, you can go ahead and just click on that particular modular and it will open it up. This is sort of a general idea of what it will look like once it's open. You will have the question and any information below. This particular one was the top of one of our reading passages. So the reading passage was over here and the questions were on the right. But as you want to be able to see what the questions are, you're going to click this next button, or you can click on the specific numbers. For any of the ELA, the numbers will be pretty much here. For math, you'll have to click through with the next button here. What we have noticed so far with the first and second grade modulars is, even though it's a viewing application, it's wanting you to put in an answer for you to be able to click to the next question in a lot of instances. So you can just click anything for an answer, and you can then click on to the next question. It will show you what the next question is. We're not totally sure why it's happening, but it's happening for the first and second grade ones, and then the new high school modulars as well. The grades 3 through 8, you can just click through. So we're going to make sure that Cambium's aware of that and see if there's anything they can do about having you just be able to click through without having to answer them. It's not going to give you a score or anything, so you want to be able to just click through at some point, hopefully. So again, those next are the numbers on the right-hand side. Any questions at this point, Annie?
No questions at this point.
Okay, great. All right, so if you decide you would like to administer an actual modular assessment, I want to walk you through how to do that as well. So first things first, you're going right back into that same portal. You're going to be choosing the test administration again. So again, you can do it here or further down on the page. And now underneath where you see the preparing for test, you'll have this administering test section and then the after testing. If you would like to administer, you're going to click right on this test administrator interface. You log in, and then it will bring you to this particular screen, and you're able to choose how you would like to administer this particular assessment. So I want to go live here and I want to show you how to do that. So I have it bookmarked here. So I'm on this home page. I'm going to click test administration. I'm going to scroll down here. I'm going to go to administering tests. And then I have active sessions, upcoming, and at-home assignments. So I want to talk a little bit about active sessions first. So active sessions is something that if you want to create an active session, it is something that you start the session, the students are doing the assessment, and then you stop the session. And the next time, if they needed to do it the next day and finish it up, you start another session again, and then you stop it whenever you want to be finished with it. So to do that, you go right to this, you choose start active session, and then you're able to choose whichever type of modular assessment that you would like to have your students do. Just so you know, there are science, but they're not applicable to first and second grade science topics. So you're really looking mostly at ELA or math. So if I were to choose ELA, this is what we're talking about here are these modular assessments. Rule of thumb, if there's a plus, you use it. If not, if I just choose grade 1, all of these modulars will be available for students to take. And it would be pretty confusing for them to know which one you actually wanted them to take. So you can either uncheck here or hit clear all. You hit the little plus here, and then you choose whichever one that you would like. If I'm ready to go, I start my live session. Your students, to be able to take the modular assessments, need to have information, which is their SASID, which is their New Hampshire SAS specific ID. It's about I think it's about a 10-digit code for them. They need their name as it's spelled in your student information system, their first name. So this is what gets a little bit confusing is when you have students that if their name is Kathleen and they go by Katie, they don't type in Katie, it's Kathleen. Or if you have a student whose given name is John, but he goes by Jack, he needs to know to put in John. So they need those two pieces of information. They're called test tickets. If you decide you're going to administer the modulars and you're not sure how to get those, you can definitely reach out at any time. But they need those two pieces of information. And then they also need this session ID. They're going to be typing in this particular session ID to their login page as well. Once students are logging in, you'll start to see approvals here, and you'll start to approve students and say, yep, these are my students, and they're able to start taking this assessment. Just so you can understand too, you can see where the students are on their assessment. So you can see if students are moving quickly through the assessment or not so quickly. You can see which questions are on. So it's just one of those screens that you're able to kind of see what's happening with student progress within this particular modular. If you're done with a test session, you just click stop. It says, are you sure? And you say, okay. And this test session ID is no longer able to be used by students. It would then basically stop the student sessions, and they would not be able to continue answering questions. If you have to go more than one day to be able to finish a modular assessment, if you kind of ran out of time and you've got students still trying to finish, you can start another session the next day, and the students will then log in and it will start where they left off the day before. Just a heads up, they can't go back and change anything from the day before. It will just start on that next question that they haven't answered. But it's the same exact thing. They won't have to restart, from question 1 again. All right.
Heather, I do have one question.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody doesn't have an account already to go into the Cambium portal and the assessment viewing application,
Mm-hmm.
how do they go for registering one?
They need to talk to their I4C coordinator or their New Hampshire SAS test coordinator in their school. So sometimes a good person to ask is if you have, sometimes guidance counselors can help you as well. Or if you just ask your principal or assistant principal who it is that puts that information in and gets the teacher accounts put in, they should know. Some schools, if it's a smaller district, it might be your principal or assistant principal that adds the teachers in. If you're in a bigger district, it might be somebody more at your district office that does that. But any of your principals or assistant principals should be able to point you in the right direction.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. The next way that you can administer one of these modular assessments is what's called an upcoming session. These here that you can see that are active sessions, they were actually upcoming sessions that I created that are still within the date range for the upcoming session. So then they move to the active session as soon as that date range, it's within that date range. I'll show you here though, just how to set one up. So you click on the upcoming sessions and you click schedule a session. You won't have to do this part, but you have up to a 2-week window that you can schedule an upcoming session. It's nice if you know that you're going to be working on something over a couple of days to be able to, set up a session and then have students put in the exact same session ID. But the scenario that's going to happen for students and for you is going to be the exact same as if this were an active session. There's just a couple of differences. So I'll show you. You can, again, if I chose to start tomorrow, I have up to a 2-week window that it will let me put in for that same test session. You could also just put in a really short time frame and just say you want it for the next couple of days coming up for Thursday and Friday of this week. And then you would just click next. You would choose whichever modular assessment that you would like to choose. And for this, because it's an upcoming session, you can create more than one. So it wants you to put in some sort of indicator for what type of session this is. So I might just put grade 2 measurement and data. And then I save the session. And I'm able to then take a look at this. I could give this to my students if I have Seesaw or Google Classroom for the younger grades. But right now it's coming in my upcoming sessions. And it's got this date range. If this was the 27th, say this is tomorrow, it will now then move to this particular tab. And it will then be an active session that I could join. Here's what happens for folks with upcoming sessions. The biggest issue that they have is they create it for a future date, and then they're going into the active session area and they can't figure out where it is. It's because the date range hasn't come. The other issue that folks have with upcoming sessions, or the things that confuse them, is they see it here, they have the students log in, they give them this session ID, and the students are sitting there saying there's no sessions available or no test sessions available for them because they forget to join the session. So let's pretend this is one that I created and I wanted my students to do today. Once I click join on this, we're having actual issues with some of my sessions here, but once you click join on it, it's going to give you that same session ID and you'll do your approvals just like you did before. So it's very similar for test security to an active session, because that upcoming session becomes an active session. You've got all the approval process and needing to put students in to the and approve them to let them take the assessment. Another way that you can set up a test session is with what's called an at-home assignment. One thing I want to make clear about at-home assignments is that students don't need to be at home to be able to do it. It doesn't mean it needs to be a homework assignment or anything like that. They could be sitting right in front of you in your classroom and they can take the assessment and you don't need to approve anybody or anything. They just put in their SASID, their first name, and then the session ID, and they're good to go. So some teachers really like this because they don't have to go through the approval process. They're just walking around the room and making sure students are all set and they're in. They're not kind of going back and forth with saying, okay, how did you type your name? Okay, let me go approve you. How did you do this? So it is a nice way to be able to do it. In addition, if I create one of these assignments, what's really helpful for this is, again, you have up to a 2-week date range. You could just put it in for a certain day or go into the future. I choose my modulars that I would like, or modulars that I would like. I again give this my, I'm going to say grade 2, and this is operations and algebraic thinking. Now, again, if you have Seesaw or if you have anything online, I know these students are in 1st and 2nd grade. I know that they're not necessarily equipped with an email account at a lot of schools. Some schools do, some schools don't. I don't know if you have Google Classroom for the earlier grades. I know I used Seesaw, but this particular link, again, can be sent to the students. And if they can click on it on their computer, it will open up their login screen. This will automatically be put in for them. And so they only need to put in their SASID or their first name. Same thing as what's happening with that upcoming session. You can use that link and students can log in from there. So sometimes it saves a little bit of a step. I'm not sure if 1st and 2nd grade students, it will be as intuitive for them or as easy for them to be able to get links sent to them, but it's an option. If you decide that you're done with it and you don't want students to be able to go into that link, not that they would probably at home, but you don't want them to have that option, you can then delete it and it's gone. They can't get back into it. So again, they can just be sitting in front of you in the classroom doing that. Any questions at all about test administration?
Not at this point.
Okay, great. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about reporting. If you decide you're going to administer a modular and not use the questions just for a question of the day or something to work through with your students, once the students finish and submit a modular assessment, the information is available in the reporting portal. So it's pretty much immediate, although I have been noticing, I've been doing some testing of the 1st and 2nd grade modulars. It has been taking just a little bit of time. But if you administer the modular, probably by the end of the school day, you'll be able to see it, if not the next day at the latest. Nice again that it's down to that question level and we can kind of take a peek at student understanding, helping you create groups for teaching or some differentiation. And it's taking a peek at how the students are mastering those particular standards at your grade level. You're going to go, this is going to be familiar. We're going to go right into this page again, go into test administration. And now we're right underneath where we just were with administering the assessments, and we're going to go right into this reporting portal. You do have to log into the reporting portal. Once you log in, it's going to ask you what you want your dashboard to look like. So for us, these ELA and math where it says benchmark here, those are modulars. So you want to choose the particular modulars to be your dashboard. You can say, make these my default selections, and then you choose go to dashboard, and it will pull up something that looks like this. This is where you're able to drill into your particular grade level and which modular you would like to see. What ends up happening is you click on whichever area you want to be able to view. It will then bring up a screen that gives you all of the modulars that your students have taken, and you can open up that particular modular and something like this will come up. So this would be any of your student information. It tells you how they're doing overall on this particular subject area. This items the students perform the best and items the students perform the worst on. You're probably not going to get those columns for first and second grade, specifically because most of the modulars have less than 10 questions, and any modular with less than 10 questions won't give you the 5 best and the 5 worst because there's not that many questions. So you'll probably just be looking at total items. On the portal here, as you're looking at total items, there's a couple of things to just understand. If you click on any of these blue numbers are hyperlinked within the reporting portal. So you can click right on this particular number and it will give you the question. And right now we're looking at where it says here corresponding domain, cluster, and standard. We're seeing that that information isn't populating in the first and second grade modulars, but we're going to be passing that along, and hopefully that information will be populating so that you can know exactly which portion of the standards that question is looking at. Really, I feel like that's important for you to be able to know that if you're looking at, numbers and operations base 10, what standard is this particular question related to, so you can see if there's any sort of pattern with students in the specific standards related to numbers and operations base 10 or whatever you're looking at.
Heather, I have one question from an AP who is imagining that the first and second grade teachers saying this is not developmentally appropriate for students at this level, and some suggestions on how to respond to that viewpoint. And I was thinking just putting up one of the problems in the class as a opening problem or discussion, at least in math, and just having the kids talk about it. And it's, getting them to see and used to questions that may not be in the program that they're using, but are similar to ones that they'll see later on in the assessments.
Yeah, I can completely understand. Specifically, I was both a first and a second grade teacher. So I can understand hesitancy from any of your teachers that are saying this might not be developmentally appropriate. But I would say to really have the teachers start taking a look at some of these questions and to really start getting students understanding how to apply skills that they have in the classroom and that they might be showing mastery of in the classroom, and how to make sure that they're transferring those skills outside of maybe the paper, pencil, or the traditional things that they might be doing in the classroom. I also think that it's really kids, students that are in first and second grade, we might say it's not developmentally appropriate because we don't want them on the computers all the time. And we don't necessarily think that, computer tests are something that those students need. And I would agree for the most part, but I'm also, we have to be really aware of where we are. And students in first and second grade, they're on electronics. They do know how to use the computers. They do have that sort of experience in and out of school. So I don't necessarily think it's so far out of the realm of what might be developmentally appropriate for students at those ages. So it's just another way to take a peek at student understanding and student learning. And it's one point of reference. So I think that there's a lot of different ways that these modulars can be used. And I also think that it is something that is really good for teachers to take a peek at and say like, oh, okay, let's look at these questions. What they might be thinking is these questions are pretty hard. And there's no doubt that some of them are, for sure. But if you were to look at any of these questions and then look at the Common Core standards, every single one of these questions directly correlates with it. There's nothing that is outside of the first grade Common Core standards that are in the modular assessments. Same thing for second grade. But it is a way and a tool for understanding student skills and where they are with their depth of knowledge that's needed to be able to hone in on some of these skills in those grade levels. So just to kind of finish up with this here, again, if you click on this number here, it will show you the correct answer. It will show you the question. Also, you can take a look and choose any of these numbers here for a specific student, and you can see how they answered that particular question. And if you're noticing that students are getting one of the questions they're having a really hard time with, like this one here, you can see all these students who got 0 points, maybe they're all answering it the same way incorrectly. So maybe there's just some sort of misunderstanding of the directions or what they're being asked to do. And they're all, getting that same, putting in the same answer that just is a really quick, maybe reteach to make sure that they understand a particular topic. If you wanted to print, you could also print the information and download it to Excel. I would say that Excel is probably the best way to look at this information. The PDF version isn't always showing up very well on the screen. And then you can start to sort students by maybe what their scores were from either highest to lowest or lowest to highest. And then you can kind of see where students are falling in on particular questions. I see there's a question, Annie, so.
Can you view a student's response to the question?
Absolutely. Right where we were talking here, if I click on this 0 here or 1 here or wherever, it will show me the exact answer that student put in there. And then you can also click on a tab that tells you what the correct answer was. All right. I will have Annie continue to monitor. We're going to just wrap up. There's a couple of resources that are available. First and second grade, there's not a lot of resources for you on the New Hampshire SAS portal, but there's a couple. So I want to show you where that is. Same place we're always looking here. Now what you're going to do is click on resources. This is also available anywhere on the bottom of your screen. So whatever tab you're on, there's also this resources area. And you can start looking for any of the supplemental materials that they have here on the portal. We're working on some of the supplemental materials to cover the first and second grade and also the new high school modulars. So just be patient. Maybe we'll have some more information from Cambium up there. But some of the general information that you might want to use is there's a students and families section. There's these item type tutorials. Some of them are a little bit more advanced and for the upper grades, but there might be something that's a little bit helpful for your first and second grade students so that they can practice clicking and dragging or doing things within the system that they might not be used to. And here's some of them here. And then there's a student practice site. Right now, there's not a lot of practice for first and second grade, but you could take a look at that and see, specifically for second grade teachers, I really, when I was teaching second grade, I had no idea what the New Hampshire SAS summative assessments were. And I didn't really understand some of the, it's not that I didn't understand where my teaching fed into the third grade standards and all of that, but it's really interesting to see what some of the third graders are being asked and how your particular instruction is feeding and getting that foundation in the first and second grade so that third graders are able to really do well on the assessment. So it might be something that you take a peek at as teachers in all your spare time. Right. Anyway, okay. So I don't see any questions, but please definitely put them in the Q&A. I'm going to just wrap up here. We have some other upcoming webinars. The next series that we're doing is Understanding Standards and Depth of Knowledge. The first one is UK to 2 teachers, the younger grades. So that is coming up next week. And then we have the other grade spans coming up as the weeks go on. So those are some upcoming webinars. I believe the first email went out for these already from our, marketing, where you could sign up. Another one's probably going to go out Friday. So if it's something that you're interested in, keep an eye on your inbox for your email, and you can sign up for any of these. We do want your feedback. So as I close out of this webinar, a survey will pop up. If you can't hang on, if there's other questions or anything like that, you'll get it again in your email tomorrow. And if you have any questions regarding the modulars, or if you feel like you need a little bit of additional training for you as teachers, or if you are an administrator and you would like your staff to have a similar training, but you want it to be able to be just for your particular school, I can work with your school. It is part of this contract that we have with the NHED to be able to work with schools specifically on these modular assessments. So if it's something that you're interested in for either first and second grade, or for any grade really, I can definitely get you some information there and see if it's something that I can do, if there's anything I can do to help you in your school. Other than that, if there's no more questions, that's it.